Hello, Magic players and collectors. Welcome back to the Land Library. I'm your librarian, and today we're on Innistrad one last time for the 4th province, Nephalia. Nephalia is the southernmost region of Innistrad and is very heavily coastline, and subsequently is constantly covered in a mist rising from the sea. But salty sea mist is pretty problematic for growing crops, so Nephalian residents rely on trade with the other provinces, especially Gavany, for their supplies. So there's plenty of merchants moving ships down the rivers and around the coast, and unlike the other provinces, which have pretty clear power dynamics, Nephalia is pretty much a neutral area with humans, vampires, and everyone else minding their own business, and is more or less just controlled by wealthy merchants. There's not even any substantial influence or authority of the Avicen Church here, and these factors make the province quite appealing to individuals interested in quick profits as a merchant, or plenty of other shady business. The constant mist, everyone just kind of looking the other way, and huge trade caravans are great for a thriving black market. There's even a necromancer black market for bodies and parts. In Nephalia, you're more likely to die in a shipwreck or just get regular murdered for the necromancer black market than attacked by any monsters. Even when Emrakul showed up, the Eldrazi pretty much just left Nephalia right away. And of course, there is a playing card for Nephalia, but I think that's about it for general background, so let's get into some landmarks. I'll start with one that's pretty quick, Lake Zava. This is a lake in the highlands, close to the border with Gavany, that is typically a first stop for any trade into the province. Despite being such an important trade hub, the town on the lake is pretty small, being less about actually doing trade, and more about just making sure everything goes down the appropriate trade route. There's no real notable events that happen here, so other than acknowledging its existence as a landmark, not really anything else to say, but it does have a land card, Highland Lake. Now, for a very big area with several sub-landmarks in it, the Silver Beach, which is basically just the coastline, but, there's a lot of little lands in this, and not really any big landmark lands. It gets its name from the silvery color of the sand, but also maybe a bit from the fog. The coast is frequently stormy, constantly misty, and is scattered with rocks, making shipwrecks pretty common. Despite this, trade is still profitable, and there's three major port cities on the coast: Havengul, Drunau, and Selhoff. Havengul is the largest of them and is heavily populated with shipwrights, smiths, and craft workers, but there's also a small fort of the Avicen Church just outside the city, as well as a vampire mansion nearby, led by Jelova, an outcast of the Stromkirk House. The church's fort was eventually cleared out after the Sasani twins destroyed Thraben and moved here to Havengul, with Gissa taking over the remnants of the fort, and Geralf joining Ludwig in his lab within the city. Then over to Drunau. This is the home of the Stromkirk House of Vampires, which was the only one of the vampire houses that left Stensia. The head of the household, Runo Stromkirk, has been funding and guiding the growth of the city for hundreds, if not a couple thousands of years, taking it from a small fishing town to a thriving merchant city. But even the most benevolent of vampires will still draw in vampire hunters, so a secret organization of vampire hunters called the Fouchard have also found a home here. Bruno doesn't really see them as much of a threat and mostly tolerates them, since they only really seem to be able to take out the lowest ranked vampires that are kind of out of line anyway. The Stromkirks don't really mind losing individuals like that. But also in Drunau is a cult worshipping a giant kraken named Crothis, led by Bruno himself, since he's been a firm worshipper of the ancient gods from back when he was a human. And Runo even managed to summon Crothis during the Endless Night, since it was too adverse to light to come up from the depths otherwise. But Crothis did return to the depths when the Endless Night was reversed. Now for the third port city, Selhoff. This is the furthest south city on Innistrad, and is affected the most by the mist. So much so that it brings in geists more frequently here than anywhere else. And just outside the city is a huge marsh called the Morcrit Swamp. The extra concentration of mist makes the Morcrit a popular dumping ground for bodies of, like, murder victims, or just that couldn't sell on the Necromancer black market. But that definitely doesn't help with the Geist problem, In fact, while most of the Mistgeists are pretty harmless, the ones in Morkrut are very much not. Even the necromancers and alchemists are wary of Morkrut, so regular people don't really stay in Selhoff long. The ship crews get in, do their business, and get out. Not much else to say about Selhoff, so let's move on to the cards. There's some pretty obvious creatures like Jelliva Nephalia Scourge, Ludovic Necrogenius, Runos Dromkirk, and Crothis, Lord of the Deep, but also some more general creatures like Havengul Vampire, Drunau Corpse Trawler, and Lamplighter of Selhoff, Nephalia Smuggler, Stromkirk Captain, Morkrut Banshee, and Morkrut Behemoth. Now, for the lands, Hinterland Harbor, which depicts Havengul, Havengul Laboratory, Port Town, which depicts Selhoff, and has two different arts, both of which still depict Selhoff, actually. Then Deserted Beach, Desolate Lighthouse, and Storm-Carved Coast for some more general areas along the coast. And the last major landmark is the Drown Yard, which technically isn't in Nephalia, it's in the sea off the coast of Nephalia, but that pretty much counts. It's an area of the sea with a rocky reef and wild tides that many ships have been lost in. It's pretty spiritually charged from all the sailors that have died here, but otherwise would be pretty unremarkable except for one major event. I haven't really mentioned it in the other videos, but Nahiri made these twisted stone points called cryptoliths all across the plane. There have been some hidden in the art of a few cards in the previous videos, but back to the topic at hand. At the Drown Yard, Nahiri erected a ring of cryptoliths that all the others across the plane point to, creating a powerful network to hijack the plane's ley line energy and direct it to the Drown Yard. Nahiri used this immense energy to summon Emrakul to the plane, and then redirected the ley line energy to Thraben, which is why Emrakul went there. One of the absolute biggest, most impactful events of the entire plane happened here in this random ship graveyard off the coast of Nephalia, which is pretty much the only reason it's notable. Now, onto some cards. There is Drownyard Explorers, coaxed from the Vine Eternities and Through the Breach. Then, for those beautiful lands, we've got Shipwreck Marsh, Nephalia Drownyard, and Drownyard Temple. As a final note, I have to talk about Nephalia Academy a little bit. I definitely think this card would be a landmark, but unfortunately I can't find any lore for it at all. The art has it overlooking sea access, so it looks like it's probably in a port city, and it makes the most sense lore-wise that an academy would be in Drunau, because people don't really want to stay around in Selhoff, and we do have pretty good art of Havengul that doesn't include the academy. So, probably Drunau, but it could very well just not be in a port city, and what I think is sea access is just like a river, so it's not even on the coast. There isn't enough information to know where this is, or anything that happened there, but I think it still deserves an honorable mention, because I'm pretty sure it's still a unique place. If you've made it this far in the video, drop a like for turn, and subscribe for more Landfield content. If I missed anything, got anything wrong, or you just have questions, let me know in the comments, and I'll see you in the next local landmarks, where we'll finally be off Innistrad and visiting another classic plane instead, but you'll just have to wait and see what it is.